half a minute. Hooray!
Hello. Mrs. Ryan's class celebrates St. Patrick's Day by creating decorations, singing and dancing to Irish music, holding a treasure hunt, eating green foods, and staging their own parade. Let's read this story together. St. Patrick's Day by Janet Riehecky. Get your copy of this book and let's read together. When John got to school on March 17, he saw something strange. There were green footprints in the hall. John followed them, and they led him right to his first grade classroom. Mrs. Ryan, John's teacher, was there. Most of you know that today is St. Patrick's Day, she said. I can tell because you're wearing green. And guess what? We have a special visitor today. See if you can find him. All the boys and girls looked. Dawn looked under the desk. Brandon looked in the wastebasket. John opened the closet. There was a little man dressed in green, sitting next to a golden pot. This is Lenny the leprechaun, said Mrs. Ryan. He has come to help us celebrate St. Patrick's Day. She opened the lid of Lenny's golden pot. Inside were pieces of paper. Each piece of paper had a number on it. Each piece of paper tells us something we can do to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, Mrs. Ryan explained. John, why don't you draw the first one? John reached in the pot and pulled the top piece of paper. It said, "Make a shamrock to wear." What's a shamrock? He asked. A shamrock is a three-leaf clover, said Mrs. Ryan. It grows in Ireland and it is considered good luck. Many people wear shamrocks on St. Patrick's Day. She showed them a picture. Then she gave everyone a piece of green construction paper and a pattern to trace. The children traced their shamrocks and cut them out. Then Mrs. Ryan fastened each one on with a safety pin. Some children also made shamrocks that they hung on the walls. Vince, said Mrs. Ryan, see what else Lenny wants us to do. Vince reached in the pot and pulled out the second piece of paper. It said, "Song and dance time." All the children gathered in a circle. Mrs. Ryan taught them to sing "When Irish Eyes Are Smiling." Then she showed them an Irish dance. Everyone wanted to try it. Then Mrs. Ryan said, "Maria, you choose the next thing to do." Maria pulled the third piece of paper out of the golden pot. It said, "Find my gold." Legend in Ireland says if you catch a leprechaun and hold on to him, he has to show you where he hid his pot of gold. Well, said Mrs. Ryan with a smile, we can play a game a little different from that. You already found Lenny the leprechaun and his pot, but you haven't found his gold. He has hidden it all over the classroom. Why don't you see if you can find the gold and give it back to Lenny? Everyone thought this was a great idea. They began searching. "I found a piece," cried Wanda. She held up a candy coin covered with gold foil. It had been in the flower pot by the window. "I found one too," George shouted. "It was under the bookcase." Soon everyone had found at least one coin. The children piled them next to Lenny's golden pot. "We'll save these for refreshment time," said Mrs. Ryan. "I'm sure Lenny will share with all of you." Wanda, you found the first piece of gold, so why don't you read the piece of paper numbered 4? Wanda did. It said, "Refreshment time." Mrs. Ryan laughed. "Okay," she said. Then she took a cloth off a table in the corner and showed everyone the refreshment table. It had been decorated with green crepe paper and pictures of shamrocks. There were green snacks such as celery, raw broccoli, and olives. There were sugar cookies with green icing. There was also a green cake and a bowl of green punch. Mrs. Ryan, Judy asked, why is everything green on St. Patrick's Day? Green is a reminder of Ireland, said Mrs. Ryan. Ireland has beautiful green hills. Many people think the grass there is the most beautiful shade of green in the world. On St. Patrick's Day, most people celebrate by wearing green and making everything around them green. In New York City, the Empire State Building puts green lights in the windows at night. In Chicago, they put coloring in the Chicago River and turn it green. Everyone enjoyed the green snacks. Then Mrs. Ryan asked Michael to pick the last piece of paper. It said, "Have a parade." There have been parades on St. Patrick's Day for hundreds of years, said Mrs. Ryan. The one in New York City is sometimes 6 hours long. But I think a parade around the school will be long enough for us, don't you? The music corner didn't have any bagpipes, but the children grabbed tambourines and cymbals and bells. They marched around the school singing, "When Irish eyes are smiling." It was a great parade. I hope you all had fun celebrating St. Patrick's Day, said Mrs. Ryan. Everyone cheered and clapped, and John said, I wish we could have St. Patrick's Day every day. Lenny the leprechaun winked. The end.